Hey guys, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. It's Lauren here and we're back for another furniture flip. This is actually going to be part one of a nursery makeover. One of my high school friends moved to South Dakota, but she was seeing what we were doing here on the channel and that I refurbish old furniture, and she was so excited when she found an older dresser and a crib that goes with it, but it needed a little bit of love. So they brought it down from South Dakota, and I am so excited to get started on this piece for my high school friend. Before we dive into this video, Amora wanted to say hello. This is Neiman's niece, and we've got baby duty today. We wanted to make sure you guys knew that we launched a surprise video on Monday of us donating $1,000 through our Furniture Funding Teachers program to the very first teacher recipient. So we would love it for you guys to go over there and congratulate Laura. We're so excited to continue this journey of donating some money to some teachers to help them out with their classroom expenses as well as student loan debt. Now back to the video. As always, I'm gonna go ahead and get started by removing this hardware. We are gonna actually be putting some new hardware on, and so I'm gonna be keeping these in my stash. They're pretty nice wooden knobs, so no reason not to keep them just in case a later project calls for some wooden knobs. When I remove the hardware, a lot of the times I also like to go ahead and take out the drawers because I'm gonna be taking them out anyway, and then also I will go ahead and clean them while they're out of there. Now that I've got all the hardware off, I'm gonna use a degreasing cleaner, super clean, to get this all cleaned off. We're gonna get all the dirt, grime, grease, and oil off of the surface. So this is actually one of those put together dressers. It's Eddie Bauer's. It's pretty nice. It's not solid wood, so it is just a little bit of a lower quality, but I'm gonna tighten everything up and we're gonna make sure that it is nice and new looking for the new baby's room. So now that we're cleaned, of course, we need to rinse all of that cleaner off, any that didn't come off when we were wiping it down, because we don't want any cleaner to stay on the surface and get underneath that paint. So we're just rinsing with some nice clean water. So since this dresser isn't solid wood, there is one thing that I just cannot fix, and that is the top of it. So as you can see here, since this is MDF and this has gotten tons of water inside of it over time, that once MDF gets water damage like this so bad to where it expands, there's really no going back after this. What I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be taking the entire top off, and since it's structural, meaning it needs to have a top in order for it to be structurally sound, I'll have to be really careful until I put the top back on. But since I'm gonna have the top off anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and paint everything while that's off. So I'm gonna figure out how to get this off. Over here, it's actually already lifted, so I'm not too worried about that side. But this side, we're just gonna have to, I think, take some screws out and figure out what to do from there. So there's a couple of screw holes up here that I believe will lead to the top coming right off, but we're gonna see if this works. Got it here. Took a little bit longer than I suspected it might, but we got it off. And I'm gonna set this back up so that we can kind of address how I think we might attach the top, even though we'll get to that later. Now that we've got that top off, we're gonna move on to the next part right before we paint, which is to sand. And I do not want to get too far down on the surface of the dresser or the drawers. So I'm just gonna be using a 220 grit. And what that is gonna do is it's just gonna give a little bit of texture to the surface of the dresser, and then that'll help my paint adhere really well. I am gonna be using my Surf Prep sander, and this is gonna be perfect for all of these little grooves. A lot of the times I find with an orbital sander that it's really hard to get into these corner areas because it's a circle. And so with this 3x4-inch electric ray sander, it really helps me get into those corners like that. And you can find the link to my Surf Prep sander and all of the attachments down below in the description. And you can also use my code FFT10 for 10% off of your entire order. All right, and I've got my microfiber cloth. Now that sanding's done, we've got to wipe all that dust back so that it doesn't get stuck in the paint. When you're using your microfiber cloth to wipe dust back, it's up to you on whether or not you want to dampen your cloth. I kind of go back and forth. Most of the time, I would say that I just use a dry microfiber cloth, but sometimes I will wet it a little bit. All right, we're ready to paint. For this dresser, as I said, we're going for more of a neutral boho look, and my client chose this beautiful green from Melange Paints. And I was excited because this color comes in their new One formula, which means that all of the things needed to refinish a piece of furniture is in this one jar. Well, of course I had to clean and sand and do all the prep, but primer and top coat, as well as the paint, of course, is all built into this paint. So it's just a one-step furniture paint. My brush is a Zebra Palm Pro. You guys know how much I love the little brushes that fit right in the palm of your hand. So I'm gonna be using that. It's just stained yellow from when I used yellow paint several months ago. Yellow will do that. It's very, very, very pigmented, but it won't come off in this paint. So I'm gonna just go ahead and get started. It has amazing coverage. We still will always do 2 coats minimum, but the coverage on the Melange paint is just amazing, and you can barely even see through when you just got the first coat on. One thing that you will notice too is that you don't want to overwork the paint when you're using self-leveling paint, or else those self-leveling qualities will be lost and it'll definitely show a lot of paintbrush stroke marks. Okay, first coat of the Thistle Green is on there, so that's gonna dry, and then we'll come back for coat number 2. Look at that smooth finish that this paint has. You can see a little bit of marks, but that's only because it didn't get quite full coverage, but you cannot feel any brush stroke marks. I am so pleased with how this is turning out already. So let's get on to coat number 2. All right, that second coat is all the way on of all the pieces, and I'm loving the way that it's looking. Now I'm going to show you what's going on with the top. All right, here is the top. I went to Home Depot and I got this piece of wood, and then I actually had to have my neighbor cut it with a table saw because the cuts were just a bit too small for Home Depot to make. But we got it cut. It is down to the right size, 19 by 45. Basically what I did is I just measured the old top and then made the new one the exact same. So this is actually just pine plywood, but it's pretty good quality. This is gonna be the actual top, and I chose that obviously because there are a couple flaws on the back here, but no big deal. In order to start getting the look that we want, I'm gonna smooth this out with 120 grit sandpaper, and then I'm gonna swap down to 220 grit to get a really smooth finish before we get any color on here. All right, now that we've got it all sanded down, we've got to choose how we want this to look when it goes on the top, meaning what color do we want it, light or do we want it dark? So we're gonna try a few things on the back before we make a decision for the top. So we've got a couple of different options here. We can just leave it this plain wood color and put a top coat over it, or we can do a faux stain, which is just like a paint wash with a similar color, but it would darken it just a tad bit. So I'm gonna start with testing the top coat, and I've just got a polyacrylic here, and it's the satin finish. So this is going to darken up our wood a tad bit. Even though it's clear, it's still gonna seep down in there a bit. So I've just got a foam brush and I'm gonna apply it. It's really not changing it too much, definitely not as even much as I thought it would change it. So that's pretty much the same color. I definitely thought it would change it more than that, but that's all right. So that's option one. And then option two is a paint wash with burlap. I've actually already got a little bit of water in here and a paintbrush. So what I would do is just take a little bit of paint and then add it to the water, and then it would basically be a wash. So there's my satin top coat. There's my burlap wash. And then of course we would take a lint-free cloth and wipe it back. I personally am liking the burlap a little bit better just because, again, this one is barely even noticeable that I even did anything. If anything, it kind of yellowed it a little bit more, and I don't really want it to be yellow. And the reason that I'm sort of choosing this is because this was my idea, and I've been in contact with my client about it, and I told her that this top was going to be more of a neutral color, because remember, the nursery is going to be more of a neutral boho look, and I don't want this to be orangey. I'm not a huge fan of the oil-based stains, so I've got a couple of different options, which is why I'm trying these out. I think I'm gonna go ahead and go with the burlap wash here. So we're gonna flip everything back over and get going on the top. Okay, so I'm gonna let that first coat dry, and then we're gonna see if I think we need a second coat. As of right now, I'm thinking no, But while that's drying, you guys know that I love to make use of my time. So I'm gonna head over to the actual base of the dresser and get everything ready to attach the top. All right, I've had this tool for a very long time, but I have never used it before, and it is a Kreg Jig. It's a small one, and a Kreg Jig is going to allow me to create some pocket holes. So this is what we're gonna be doing to attach the top. I'll show you guys. I'm not gonna really do a tutorial right now, but what I'm gonna just do is show you what I'm doing. If you guys do want a tutorial on the Kreg Jig, let me know down in the comments, and once I get a little bit more experience with it, I would love to do it for you guys. So I'm just going to be making 8 or 9 of these with Kreg Jig pocket holes, so that I can then attach them to the dresser and then attach the top. So I've got it all measured out, and then I gotta clamp it here. Kreg Jig comes with a specific drill bit. So I've got this big drill bit because this is what's going to be the thing that actually makes the pocket hole. And then the actual jig is what makes it go in at such an angle. Lots of sawdust, but there's one. Now that we've got all of these with pocket holes in them, it's time to go attach them to the dresser. So you may be wondering how I am going to be attaching these to the actual dresser. Well, let me tell you. I've got my brad nailer here that's going to be actually attaching them, and then I've got these clamps that's gonna hold them in place while I am attaching them with the nail gun. These blocks need to be completely flush right here, because when that top goes on and we put the pocket holes in, this needs to be flush so that it is flat and even on the top of the dresser. All right, and that is on there for sure. So once we get the top done and it's dry and all these are attached, what I'm gonna do is put the pocket screws up in there and it'll attach to the top. So if you can imagine, my hand is the top, the screws go in. I have these all around so the top will not come off. So this was actually a design that I just came up with myself. I really tried to figure something out on how to attach a dresser top. I looked on YouTube, couldn't really find anything. If you guys have been around for a while, back in the summertime, I tried to do a top dresser with planks, and actually I haven't even been able to sell that one because the planks were too wiggly. I really only used glue and I just didn't feel confident enough. So I definitely had to fail first before I was able to achieve something. So now I'm trying a different method, and now that I've learned a lot more, failed a little bit, I'm continuing to try on. Where there's a will, there's a way. All right, we got all 10 of the pieces attached. So now we basically just wait until the top is ready to put on and we'll have a finished piece. Here we are, got the top. So I definitely need to make sure that everything is gonna be lined up perfectly. But it's looking awesome. I love this color with the lighter green color. So again, the top is 45 inches wide. I'm going to need to make sure that the same amount is hanging off over here as it is over here. So I'm gonna be doing a little bit of more measuring. All right, we got everything squared up. Now comes the fun part of actually putting in the pocket screws. So before I actually put the pocket screws in, I'm gonna clamp the top to the actual base of the dresser. That way we don't risk any movement. We've got the Kreg Jig screws as well. These are pocket hole screws specifically for pocket holes. And then this is for softwood and plywood. So it's gonna have a little bit of a coarser thread, which just means it's a little bit more spread out. And then I got the 1-inch ones because obviously I don't want it going through the top of my dresser. I did practice this before I am doing it on the real thing. I made sure that this wasn't gonna go through a 3/4 inch board because that would just be tragic and mess everything up. So definitely test out what you were gonna do before you do it on your actual piece. And also the Kreg Jig has measurements for specific depths of wood, so definitely follow those directions. Also, they've got their own drill bit. It's a square head, but it's very long, so it gives you a lot of room to drill your screw in. We're done. So if you remember the top coat that I was trying earlier on just the raw wood, I'm gonna actually be using that same thing for protection over the top. I'm gonna do quite a few layers of it because this is just raw wood. It's never been finished and I sanded it down myself. So I really wanted to have a great finish, and plus this is going in a nursery, so I want it to have a nice and smooth finish so nobody gets any splinters or anything like that. All right, I got a couple of coats of the satin finish top coat on there and it's really feeling nice and smooth. No longer worried about any splinters happening, and I might put one more on the top. I'm just not quite sure yet, but I just want to make sure that it's got its utmost protection. Our last step here is to put on the hardware. And I am excited because I get to use a hardware that I've seen used before, but I've never personally used it. But my customer really wanted the leather poles to be used on this dresser. So she picked out this color of poles, and I think it's really gonna pair well with the green color as well as the top. I was a little iffy thinking it might have been too dark, but I think that all three of the colors really complement well. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these on to each of the 6 drawers. So there's lots of different parts and pieces to this hardware, and there weren't any instructions on how to install it. So I'm sort of just going with the flow. Voila, let's get it staged. So it's been a while since we've actually talked about staging, and we thought what better time than now to do so again. So we are actually partnering with one of our viewers who reached out to us via email and thought that he could help me spice up my staging a little bit. He runs a vintage shop over on Etsy, and he sent me a couple of awesome staging items, and he's got so much more over there on his Etsy shop. It is called How Da Vintage, and we'll link it down below. But not only that, get 20% off with my code FLIP20. So just in time for the holidays, if you're interested in some more staging props, but maybe you just aren't quite sure what will go well with staging, well, you don't have to do that anymore. He's got everything already picked out for you over on his Etsy shop. Get over there and get yourself some vintage staging props. And so we're just doing a little bit of simple staging. We've got a lot of brass and gold things going on here. This is an awesome piece of pottery that Adam sent me. So again, just simple staging will do wonders for your pieces. If you are interested in doing the more elaborate things, then all the more power to you. But this is going to be my staging for now. I want to talk a little bit about the piece and the finished results with you guys. Again, this is my second time using the Melange 1 line, and I just am really in love with that new formula and how it is all built in. The primer, top coat, and the paint is all in one, and just the finish on this piece is almost very close to a factory finish. Barely any brush stroke marks that you can even see, and it almost looks original, which I'm so pleased with because it's very hard to not get brush strokes in your paint. So if you are struggling with those brush strokes, try out the Melange paint line. It self-levels incredibly, and this color is to die for. So if you're interested in trying this thistle green in the 1 line or anything else from Melange's website, head over there and use my code FLIP10 for 10% off. So let's talk a little bit about the pricing for this. As I said, this is actually just part 1 of this nursery flip. So this specific dresser, I ended up quoting her at $340 to $400. And you guys know that I really harp on giving a range because I've learned from mistakes, and I think it's gonna take me one amount of time, or I'm not gonna need an extra material or two, and then I end up needing it. So I always give myself a little bit of leeway, a little bit of wiggle room, and I suggest that you do the same thing if you are doing custom work. Because I had to replace the top and I wasn't quite sure if I was gonna do that, I'm gonna go in between that $340 to $400. I haven't quite nailed down the price just yet. Attaching this top with the Kreg Jig and just utilizing new tools, to me, that was really fun for me, and honestly it just makes me want to build all of the things. So I think soon I want to build some more things instead of just painting, because that really tickled my fancy when I put that top on. I hope you guys enjoyed this dresser flip and maybe learned a little bit about attaching a top to things, because that was my first time successfully attaching a new top, and so I hope you guys learned a little bit about that. Be sure to get subscribed down below, because part 2 of this nursery makeover is coming at you here in a couple of weeks, and you're not going to want to miss that. So thank you guys so much for watching. We would love for you to follow us over on Instagram at Furniture Flipping Teacher for some behind the scenes, lots of questions and interactions over there. We would love to have you as a part of that community as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side.